Okay, on this video, I'm going to show you how to solve a quadratic inequality. So we're going to continue our work with quadratics. To start this, I want to show you a linear inequality and then tell you that we can't do a quadratic that way, okay? So if I have 2x plus 3 is greater than 9, okay, then you just solve this like a linear equation. You subtract 3 from both sides, and you say 2x is greater than 6, and then x is greater than 3. And so if we have a number line, here's 3, and the x's that solve this, that make this true, are anything bigger than 3. Well, if you have a quadratic like x squared plus 7x minus 18, and you want to know where it is greater than or equal to 0, you can't solve it like a line and find your number line and just say, you know, everything bigger than 5 or everything less than 2 works, because this is curved, okay? The shape of this quadratic is a U shape. So if the x-axis goes through here and we want to know where it's positive, then it would be this section here and this section here. If the x-axis is down here instead, then everything is positive, because everything would be above the x-axis. So the fact that it's curved makes a big difference. And if it's upside down, if you would have a negative x squared, then it would be this section in the middle, okay? So the first thing we have to do is find the roots. That's step number 1. Find where it equals 0. Okay, so this is a fairly simple one to factor. If it's harder, then you can use the quadratic formula, but I would factor this. So you have x plus 9 and x minus 2 is greater than or equal to 0. Okay, and we always want to compare it to 0. So if there's a number over there, you need to subtract it over. Just like if you're doing the quadratic or you're solving, you set it equal to 0. So if we multiplied that out, we'd get plus 7x and a minus 18. So if I solve this, then this would give me x equals negative 9 and x equals 2 for my roots. Now, there's 2 different ways to proceed from here, and you're going to start to know whether you are a person that likes to think things through graphically or algebraically. I don't know if I spelled algebraically right, but that's okay. So graphically, you're going to think through it this way. You have a parabola that has a root at negative 9 and positive 2. From the fact that it's x squared, you know that it's a U shape and not upside down. So we don't care how steep this is. We just know that it's U-shaped and it goes through negative 9 and positive 2. Okay? Well, if that's the case, then it is greater than 0, because that's what we're looking for, greater than 0 where it's positive. So that's this section here and this section here. Now our answers are in terms of x. So the x's that give that to us are things from 2 to infinity, and we want to be greater than or equal to 0, so equal to is included, and then everything from negative infinity to negative 9. So then we could put a union between the two and we could answer it that way. We could say x is greater than or equal to 2, or x is less than or equal to negative 9. You could answer it that way. Now, if you want to do it algebraically and not mess with what the shape is, then you do it this way. You've got a number line, and you've got negative 9 and positive 2 on there, and then you pick numbers. You pick a number that's smaller than negative 9, like negative 10. Something in between negative 9 and 2, I always pick 0 or 1 if I can, and then something bigger than 2, so I would pick 4. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be 1 more or 1 less. It's just somewhere in that section, because we found that the only place this parabola equals 0 is at negative 9 and 2. So if I plug in, let's plug in 0. If I plug 0 in, and I can either plug it in here and get 0 plus 9, which is 9, 0 minus 2 is negative 2, and get negative 18, so I get a negative number in here. So any number that I pick between negative 9 and 2 is going to give me a negative answer. If I want to plug 0 into the original, I could do that too. I've got x squared plus 7x minus 18. If I plug 0 in there, I get negative 18. So you get a negative. If I plug in 4, then 4 plus 9 is 13. And I don't even care what the number is. I just care that it's positive or negative. If I plug in 4 to this parentheses, I get a positive 13. 4 minus 2 is a positive 2. Two positives makes a positive. I'm going to erase this because this goes in that section. Then if I do a negative 10, negative 10 plus 9 gives me a negative. I'm not even going to put negative 1. It's just a negative. If I take negative 10 minus 2, I get another negative. Two negatives makes a positive. So my results are positive, negative, positive. I want to know, I'm trying to solve where this is greater than or equal to 0, so I want positive numbers. Positive is the word for the symbol greater than or equal to 0, okay? So that means this section and this section is where it's positive. That answers my question. So to answer it then, you do negative infinity to negative 9, bracket, union, bracket, 2 to infinity. Okay, so let's do another one. Let's say we have x squared minus 2x minus 63, and I want to know where it's less than 0. Okay, so either do the quadratic or factor. I'm going to factor this. So this is x minus 9 and x plus 7 greater than 0. So my roots are x equals 9 and x equals negative 7. Make the number line, put it in order. So if negative 7 is there and 9 goes there, then I like to do this. That way I've got kind of room to work here. So if I pick a number smaller than negative 7, like negative 8, something in between negative 7 and 9, so I'm going to pick 0. Something bigger than 9 could be 10. So if I take negative 8 and put in that parentheses, negative 8 minus 9 is going to give me a negative number. Negative 8 plus 7 is also going to give me a negative number. Two negatives makes a positive. 0 minus 9 is negative. 0 plus 7 is positive. A negative and a positive multiplies to give me a negative answer. 10 minus 9 is positive. 10 plus 7 is positive. Two positives multiplied together give me a positive. So I'm looking for less than 0. So that means I'm looking for negative answers. That's in the middle. It's just less than, so I'm going to use parentheses instead of brackets. If it was less than or equal to, I would use brackets, but it's less than, and I want to be everything in between negative 7 and 9. Now, here's another thing. These numbers down here I circled, they're the ones that I plugged in. Those are the ones that I just randomly picked. The negative 7 and the 9 are the numbers you get when you solve it, and those are your roots. Those are the numbers you use for your answer. These numbers are not part of your answer, so that's why I write them differently. I put the roots on top, I put the other numbers on the bottom and circle them. Make sure you signify which numbers you're supposed to use for your answer so you don't get mixed up. So negative 7 to 9 is what I want. I want parentheses around it. So it looks like an ordered pair, but it's an interval. Okay, it's an interval from negative 7 to 9. Or if you prefer, you could say negative 7 is less than x, which is less than 9. That would also work. Okay? Notice that it alternates here, positive, negative, positive. It won't always do that when our equations get more complicated, but when it's a simple quadratic, it'll do that. Okay, let's do one more trickier one. Okay, so let's say we have 3x squared minus 19x minus 81, and we want to know where that's less than or equal to negative 4x minus 9. So just in general, without graphing it carefully, 3x squared minus 19x minus 81 is a parabola that opens this way. Negative 4x minus 9 is a straight line with a negative slope. So it'll go through like that. We want to know where the parabola is under or less than the line. So we're looking for this middle section here. So it really helps to know that we're looking for a middle section. Now, we could possibly work this and get no solution, because we could have a parabola here like this, and the line could be under it, and there might be no place where the parabola is under the line. So that's a possibility. Sometimes that happens. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is find our roots. But we've got to, in order to do that, we've got to move this over and set it equal to 0. You always set it equal to 0. So I've got 3x squared, and then I'm going to add 4x to both sides. So I have negative 15x, and then plus 9, so negative 72 is less than or equal to 0. Okay? At this point, I would divide by 3, because 3 goes into all of those. And I can do that because 0 divided by 3 is 3. I told you recently in our last equations not to divide by 3 just because everything's divisible by it if it's equal to a formula. You know, if like its distance equals this, you don't divide everything by 3. But it's 0 on one side. So 0 divided by 3 is also 0. So this makes it easier to factor. If you're going to use a quadratic, it really doesn't matter. You can just use the number, you can use the numbers the way it is. So minus 5x, and that is what? 24, less than or equal to 0. So I need numbers that multiply 24 and subtract a 5. So that's x minus 12 and x plus 7. Again, if you want to do the quadratic, that's okay. So I'm going to say that my answer is x equals 12 and x equals negative 7. Draw your number line, negative 7, positive 12. Pick numbers in between, so negative 8, 0, 13. So negative 8 minus 12 would give me a negative number. Negative 8 plus 7 would also give me a negative number. 0 is going to give me a negative, and then 0 plus 7 is positive. 13 minus 12 is positive. 13 plus 7 is also positive. So again, because all of these examples have been parabolas that are not a negative, okay, because they're shaped like this, it goes negative, whoops, that's a positive. 2 negatives makes a positive, and then a negative, and then a positive. So we are looking for where it's less than or equal to 0. Remember, we're looking for the section where the line, or where the parabola was under the line. So the negative section is what we're looking for. And so that is from negative 7 to 12. It's less than or equal to, so it's a bracket. So you could answer it that way, or you could say negative 7 is less than or equal to x, which is less than or equal to 12. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. After we do quadratics and lines, we will move on to more complicated equations. So make sure you understand this process, because we're going to use this process no matter how complicated the equation starts.